hello, hi, good morning. How's everyone doing today? How's everyone doing? I am having a wonderful morning. It is a beautiful day. It is a beautiful morning. The sun is shining. The weather is actually quite nice, though a little too hot, still a little too hot for my liking, but it is what it is. I hope everyone's doing well today. I hope everyone's doing well. Today we are doing a very special story time. And those of you who have been here long enough to know, I do my creepypasta story times at least once a month or, once every few weeks. Just to kind of, have some fun. Have a good time. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day today. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. What's going on with my chat? I cannot see my chat. I see someone's messaging me, but I cannot see my chat. Hold on one moment. There we go. Yay! Catcar! Hi! Thank you for being here! Black Dust, hi! Thank you for being here. Rowan, I saw your message from earlier. Hi! Thank you for being here. Hold on, I am going to fix up my chat now that it's been updated. So today we're doing some creepypasta readings. We're gonna be doing the spooky spaghetti. Black Dust, oh, you're sick? I'm sorry that you're feeling ill. I hope you feel better. I know how that's like. I know it sucks. I hope you feel better. My voice is still a little on the side of raspy from my infection, but I'm doing a lot better. So I decided I wanted to do a creepypasta reading. It's been a while since I've done one, so I figure, what the heck, why not, right? But yes, it's a wonderful morning. I feel like $1,000,000 despite my throat still being on the sore side. I'm doing pretty well though, from the grand scheme of things. I'm doing pretty well. I hope everyone's doing well too. Alright, so today we're going to be reading some creepypastas. I do this like once a month, once every other month. It's nighttime! Oh! It's nighttime where you are! Perfect! That means you get to get all the spooky creepiness from the creepypastas. Perfect! It's a spooky, scary time. It's gonna be so much fun. Let me just fix my chat box real quick, because I had moved it yesterday. Because I was having a friend over on my last stream. My friend Calrum stopped by, kind of short notice, and we had a chill chatting stream where we talked a lot of nonsense and just had a generally good time. But I had to move the chat box out of the way because it was in the middle of his face. Alright, so let's see. We got some creepypasta stories lined up here today. I tend to have, I have a window up for my creepypastas. My spooky spaghettis. Which are a grand old time. I love creepypastas. I think they're super fun, and the people that write them are just so creative that I can't help but be in awe. Like, I wish I could write this good. I like to write, but I'm not that good of a writer. I think people who write these creepypastas are super talented. Alright, just give me a moment. I have to organize literally everything. Everything's a little bit of a mess. Let's see. Actually, I can just do that here. Put that here. Oh no, I can actually keep that right here. Put that here. That way I can see everything that's happening over here. And then I can put this right. Okay, cool. Just how to organize the desktop is a little messy. All right, let's see. I'm scrolling. I'm on the creepypasta website, where you can see all the latest creepypastas that have been written, all old ones, all new ones. If you really like creepypastas or scary stories, I highly recommend checking out creepypasta.com. They have so many really amazing writers on there and a lot of really good stories. So far, I haven't been disappointed. For our creepypasta readings. They've been really good lately. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see if we can find some good ones. Need some spooky spaghetti here. Let's see. Let's get some, top ranked. Let's see. Let's start by top ranked. Okay, here we go. Here's a good one. I'm gonna open it up right now. I'm also having a big old cup of coffee this morning because I want to be full of beans. I want to be full of beans. I need the energy. I slept relatively well, but I had a really hard time waking up this morning. So I have me a nice big old cup of coffee. So if I'm a little bit on the hyper side, just know that I'm just full of beans. Full of caffeine, full of beans. Spoopy noodle time. I see, hi! Thank you for being here. You're very melt. I am also very melt. It's quite hot today. It's quite a hot day. But I hope you're ready to get some chills from the creepypastas. Some spine-tingly chills. It's spooky noodle time. Spoopy spaghetti. Let's see. This one is called... You melted a lot? Oh no! You need to go into a freezer. You need to go in the freezer ASAP. Get some more water in you and get yourself in the freezer. No melty. Don't melty. Let's see. This one's called... Okay, found one. This one is called Nighty Night by Tim Sprague. Okay, by Tim Sprague. Oh, hello, hello, Booby. Looks like my cat also wants to join in on the fun. Come, Booby. Up. 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 Good boy. Good boy. You get to sit there right at the window. Alright. So this one's called Nighty Night by Tim Sprague. It's a long one. It's a long one, but I can't wait. Okay, let's go. You're gonna make a drink for the night? Okay, enjoy that drink. Oh, it's a nice comfy drink. Let's see. For the past 5 years, it's just been Ian and me. My wife's pregnancy wasn't easy. There was a number of scares and close calls due to health issues that she had experienced all her life. Every doctor she had ever been to had told her that she would never be able to get pregnant in the first place. She put on a brave face and joked that she would just get an entire litter of puppies instead. But when she was thinking about it, and I didn't know I was watching, her real feelings were etched all over her face. Hi, Booby! He just climbed up onto my shoulder and was just smelling my face. Hi, Booby. Good morning to you, too. I didn't get to see you this morning. Jeez. My cats are so clingy, I swear. Let me go back to where it was. Okay. She put on a brave face and joked that she would just get an entire litter of puppies instead. But when she was thinking about it and didn't know I was watching her, her real feelings were etched all over her face. She loved kids, and the thought of not being able to have one herself was heartbreaking for her. We discussed other options, of course. Adoption, fostering, you name it, and we looked into it. We even had a meeting scheduled with an adoption agency when a miracle happened. That miracle was Ian. Against all odds, Ellen became pregnant. Her doctors were at a complete loss. It should have been impossible, but suddenly there we were, talking about converting our second bedroom into a nursery and planning out how to shuffle around all our work schedules to make sure that one of us was always home with the baby. The complications began around 4 months into the pregnancy. It seemed like every few weeks we were at the hospital while the staff ran tests or performed procedures. Excuse me. My throat's still a little... Sorry, I'm still battling. I'm still recovering from the slight infection I had gotten in my throat and sinuses a few days ago. So if I cough randomly, I'm super sorry. I'll try to move away from my mic if I start coughing. Okay. It seemed like every few weeks we were at the hospital while the staff ran tests or performed procedures. Ellen was amazing during all of it. I was acting... Oh! Oop! One moment. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second. Ah! about that. That was the mailman from upstairs. They were delivering kitty litter. It's hard to go shopping for cat stuff. When you're a cat yourself. So like we tend to get deliveries. I had to run upstairs. Apparently they were ringing the bell for a while, but let me know right now. You gotta let me know. Lemmy's my Eldritch bedroom. You gotta let me know whenever someone's at the door, because sometimes Creator will not answer. So I answered it. And I got kitty litter for my kitties. Yay! Which is good because their box needs a cleaning. But I tell Creator every time, you have to go get cat litter whenever you're out. And he doesn't, because he forgets, because he's a butthead. Alright, let's get back to it. I'm so sorry about that. Let's get back to it. Alright. Where was I? Let's see. It seems like every few weeks we were at the hospital while the staff ran tests or performed procedures. Ellen was amazing during all of it. I was acting like a complete lunatic, worrying out of my mind about every little thing. But she would just lay there, in the uncomfortable hospital bed, stroking her increasingly large belly and smiling to herself. She would tell me that she just knew that everything would work out in the end, and that all of the issues were just bumps in the road. She went into her labor early, just a few days after the 31-week mark. She waddled into the kitchen and told me in a very calm and a very matter-of-fact tone that the baby was coming. I had been getting ready for bed, so in that same collected manner she retrieved the bag we had packed weeks earlier and the car keys while I frantically got dressed and grabbed a few necessary items that hadn't yet gone into the bag. 6 hours later, Ian was born. He was so small, and I could feel my heart sink as he emerged. The doctor immediately took him over to a radiant warmer table, where he had a nurse begin working with him. A second nurse kept me from getting too close to ensure I didn't get in the way. The activity suddenly stopped, and the most wonderful sound filled the room. Our son started to cry. The doctor informed me that due to Ian's size, he would need to spend a couple of weeks in the newborn intensive care unit, but that from what he could see, the child would be fine. I remember feeling so relieved that I had to put a hand on the bed footboard to steady myself. My fingers had just touched the plastic when an alarm on Ellen's monitor went off. Ian and I lost her in less than an hour. It wasn't anything that the hospital staff did wrong. It wasn't anything that could have been prevented. The stress of the labor and birth had been too much for her, and she had suffered massive hemorrhaging. The staff did their absolute best to save her. It just wasn't possible. She never even got to hold Ian before she was gone. I never got the chance to mourn her. I was now a single parent, and all that mattered was that tiny little baby in the NICU. The next few weeks were spent going to work, getting through my shift, and immediately returning to the hospital to sit with Ian all night before doing it all over again. Shortly before he was released, I secured a position with a new company. It paid less but allowed me to work from home. Without much of a family support system, I needed to be there for him at all times. After all, it was just me and him now. I wish so much that Ellen could see this incredible child that we made together. He's loving, energetic, frustrating, confounding, and so much more. He's everything that we could have hoped for, so much more. He also has a very vivid imagination for his age, which is partly why I didn't believe him when he first told me that he was being visited by something during the night. It took a while to get to this point, but we settled into a routine each evening. We have dinner together, spend about an hour running around outside if the weather is nice, or playing inside if it isn't. Ian gets his bath, and then he lays down to sleep for the night. This routine is supposed to be finished around 8 o'clock each night, but if you have kids, you know that no routine is foolproof. On the first night he was visited, I didn't manage to get him wrangled into bed until almost 9. I was catching up on work on my desk when I heard Ian yell for me. I'm ashamed to admit that my first reaction was to feel irritated. Normally, when he called out like that, it was to try to get one last drink of water, or to tell me that he isn't tired to go to sleep, and can't go to sleep. That would happen at least twice a week. I said I have an incredible child, not one that wasn't prone to the usual 4-year-old tendencies. When he immediately cried out a second time, though, I stood up and pushed my chair back so hard it tipped over. There was panic in his voice. Excuse me. Yeah. I hurried. Oh my gosh, excuse me. I hurried up the short flight of stairs to the second floor and flung his door open, my hand immediately going for the light switch. Ian was sitting in his bed with tears streaming down his face. The left leg of his pajamas was pulled up, and his hands were pressed down on the skin. The sheets and comforter from his bed were lying on the floor. His pillow was hanging halfway off the mattress. I hurried to him and knelt down next to his bed, putting down the safety rail as I did. He immediately flung his arms around my neck and started crying harder. The sobbing was so intense that he started to cough uncontrollably. I pried him off of me and held him in my lap to allow him to catch his breath. We sat there for a long time, him crying and sniffling loudly with me gently stroking his hair and telling him that everything was all right. When he finally calmed down, I sat him on the edge of the bed and took his hands away from his leg. There were 3 long scratches running down it. They weren't deep, but there were a few tiny beads of blood. I gently asked him what had happened. He remained silent. I asked him again, and this time he lifted his head to look at me in the eyes. "Nighty-night hurt me," he told me in a tiny voice. I looked back at him in confusion. I don't know what I expected him to say, but it certainly hadn't been that. "Nighty-night," I asked softly. "Like what I tell you at night before you go to bed?" "Nighty-night," Ian replied more forcefully this time. "He scratched me, like the bad cat did." Just after his 3rd birthday, he had been scratched by a neighbor's kitten while trying to play with it. The claws had even punctured his skin, but the incident has stuck with him. "I'm sorry, big guy. I don't understand. Are you saying that Nighty-Night is a cat?" "Not cat. Nighty-Night is a monster, Daddy. He hurt me." I looked back down at the scratches. They were obviously real, but just as obviously that they hadn't been caused by any monster. Something else had happened. I wanted to make it clear that I never thought for a second that Ian was lying to me. Sure, he was prone to the occasional fib, just like any young child was, but he never lied to me about important things. Besides, he was too scared to be making up a story. Scooping Ian into my arms, I carried him into the bathroom and got the first aid kit out of the cabinet. As I sat down on the toilet and maneuvered him into my lap, I mentally slapped my forehead. The past few nights I had forgotten to trim his fingernails when I had given him his bath. He must have scratched himself in his sleep. It had woken him up, and his still half-asleep mind must have interpreted the whole thing as a monster attacking him. I quickly bandaged the scratches before trimming his nails with a small silver clipper. He had calmed down by that point, and I gave him a hug before carrying him to his room. When I went to put him down in bed, however, he held onto me so tightly that I nearly tipped forward. He absolutely refused to sleep in his bedroom that night. We ended up falling asleep together on the couch downstairs, and by the time the sun was up, he was back to his usual self. The events of the previous night seemed to be forgotten. It was Saturday, and because I didn't have to work on the weekends, I took Ian to a local state park. We spent the entire day playing on the playground and splashing around in the lake. By the time we left the park and headed home, we were both exhausted. He fell asleep in his car seat just a few minutes away from the house. I carried him inside and put him to his bed. He remained passed out through the entire process. I planned to let him sleep for an hour or so. He still needed to eat dinner, and I knew that if he napped for too long, it would be almost impossible to get him down for the night. I kicked off my shoes and flopped down in a chair to enjoy the momentary silence. The silence didn't last long. It was shattered by Ian screaming. It wasn't a yelp or crying out like it had been the previous night. This was a full scream, one filled with pain and terror. I yelled his name as I leaped up the stairs and burst to his room. Ian was seated on the floor, his thumb in his mouth and his eyes watery. He was rocking back and forth slowly. He looked up at me with a blank expression, as if he knew that I was there, but my presence didn't mean anything to him. I picked him up, and as I did, I felt something warm and wet on my hands. I pulled away from his back and saw there was blood on my fingers. Just as I had thought the night before, I carried him to the bathroom and turned on the light. I immediately saw his back reflected off the mirror over the sink, and I felt like ice was poured into my veins. Pieces of his shirt were torn away, and the shreds that remained were red with blood. I set Ian down on the counter and lifted his shirt over his head. He was unresponsive during the entire process, and the part of me that was still thinking clearly wondered if he was in shock. On his back were 3 cuts, each of them spaced roughly the same distance as the scratch on his leg. They were much deeper than those, though, and they were bleeding freely. I bandaged them as fast as I can before taking him downstairs and back out to the car. The cuts were too much for my basic first aid skills. He needed a doctor. The drive to the hospital was torture. I patted his car seat as much as I could with a blanket to try to take the pressure off his back, but he started screaming in pain before we got very far. Knowing full well that it was illegal, I pulled over, unstrapped him, and set him down in the passenger seat with him sitting sideways before getting back in and continuing the drive. Maybe that was the wrong call. Honestly, I don't know. All I know is that I couldn't stand for him to be in agony like that. The nurse behind the emergency room desk immediately waved us through when she saw Ian's back through the window. She ran off to get a doctor where I carefully set him down on a nearby gurney. I hugged him as best as I could without touching his back and told him that everything was going to be okay. I know it hurts, little man, but I have to ask you something, I told him, giving him a reassuring smile. What happened? Night, night, he replied immediately in a matter-of-fact voice. Night, night, hurt me. I didn't have to question him further. The doctor arrived and she took one look at Ian's back before telling our nurse to wheel him in a nearby examination room. I went to follow, but the doctor told me she thought it was best if I waited outside. Her eyes were looking past me as she spoke, and when I glanced over her shoulder, I saw she was looking at a security guard standing at the far end of the hallway. If I had been thinking straight, I would have understood what was happening, but at the time I was too worried about Ian to figure out what that look meant. The doctor went to the examination room as the nurse came back out. She put her hand on my arm and gently led me away from the door. I protested, of course, but she made it clear that I had to come with her and answer some questions before I would be able to see Ian. She started asking me if there were any pets or animals in the house, to which I replied that there weren't. Then she asked me if I had been with anyone else when his injuries occurred. When I told her that we hadn't, she followed up by inquiring if I had been drinking that day. That was the moment that I started catching on. The hospital staff was trying to determine if I had been the one that hurt my son. At some point during the conversation, a man in a gray suit entered the hallway and came to a stop next to us. He introduced himself as a social worker. He stated that it was his job to make sure that Ian was safe and got the best care possible. He asked his own set of questions, and I answered them best as I could, but I was sure that he really wasn't believing me. It didn't help that I couldn't tell him what had happened, because I had no idea myself. Sometime later, the doctor came back out of the room and informed me that while one of the cuts had been shallow enough to bandage, the other 2 required stitches. To say that I was irate was an understatement. I wasn't upset that she had done what was medically necessary. I was angry that I had been kept out of the room the entire time instead of being there to comfort him during the process. She stood there calmly as I yelled, and once I had said my piece and was winding down, she told me that she recommended that Ian stay at the hospital overnight for observation. After taking a deep breath, I asked calmly if I could be able to stay with him. She didn't answer, but the social worker did. He told me in a clearly practiced tone that due to the nature of the injuries, he's going to take Ian into his custody for the night while he worked to determine the nature of his injuries. His tone might have been pleasant and measured, but the implication behind his words were clear. You think I hurt Ian? I said, fighting back a second wave of anger. I would never hurt my son. If you think for 1 second I'm going to let you... That's enough, the social worker snapped, cutting me off. You need to stop right there. I haven't made a determination one way or another if I think you did this. I will say that I've met a lot of abusive fathers in my time, and you don't strike me as one of them. I have policies and protocols that I have to follow, though. What's best for everyone involved is if you go home for the night, get some sleep, and let me do my job so we can get this put behind us. He caught me off guard. I stared at him for a long moment before nodding once. Anything I did other than what he told me would only jeopardize my situation, and even though the thought of being apart from Ian for a night made me sick, the thought of him being taken away permanently was much worse. I nodded again, and he patted me on the arm. He told me to come back in the morning and ask for him at the desk before turning to go into the examination room. As I opened the door, I clearly heard Ian call out to me. I left the hospital feeling as if my entire world was burning before my eyes. I went home immediately and marched up to Ian's room. I was determined to figure out what had happened to him. The scratches on his leg could have been explained away by him causing them in his sleep, but the cuts on his back were another matter. He couldn't have reached into that area of his body. Even if he could, there was no way that he would have made markings that deep. Something else had happened. I tore apart his room looking for answers. A loose screw or nail that he had leaned up against, a broken piece of bed that I hadn't noticed, a toy with something protruding, anything. I examined every inch of the room from top to bottom. I came up empty. There was nothing I could find that could have caused his injuries. Defeated, I leaned up against the wall and slid down to the floor. Something caught my eye, and I reached over and picked up a small stuffed duck. Its yellow cloth had faded, and overall it looked a bit worse for wear, but I could still easily identify it as the first toy that Ellen had ever bought for Ian. It had been right after we had found out that she was pregnant. She had named it Mr. Quackers, an absurd name for an absurd-looking duck. The events of the day caught up with me, and I started to nod off. I felt my eyelids grow heavier with each heartbeat. This was good, I reasoned. I would get some sleep, and then be at the hospital the moment the sun began to rise. That was when I saw the creature standing in the corner of the room. One moment there was nothing there, and the next there it was, its extremely tall gray body bent over as it pushed up against the ceiling. Its limbs were extremely long and thin for a creature its size. Its 2 arms ended in 3 needle-like fingers that had to have extended at least 3 feet from the hands. Stretched out into the elongated neck was its face. Its lips, dry and cracked and missing entire chunks in some places, were pulled back in an internal grin that exposed its oversized white teeth. The lidless eyes were black in the center, and the areas that on a person would have been white were the dried yellow color of old parchment. Dark ichor that had pooled in its jar slowly dripped onto the floor as it watched me. "Nighty-night," the creature rasped out. My entire body jumped as I snapped back into full consciousness. The creature was gone again, with no trace that it had ever been there in the first place. The spots where the ichor had splattered on the floor had vanished. I sat there on the floor, alone in the room, with a pulse racing, my breath coming in short gasps. I could have attempted to rationalize what I had seen. It probably would have been easy enough to convince myself that I had imagined it, that it was a trick of the light that my nearly unconscious mind had twisted into a horrifying vision. It is a perfectly rational explanation. The problem was that I had seen it. I knew that it had been real. There was no question about it in my mind. It was impossible, but I was sure that I had been occupying that corner of the room across from me seconds earlier. My breathing slowed and my panic was slowly replaced by nausea as a realization came to me. Ian had also seen this creature. It had stood over my 4-year-old son with that nightmarish face. It had then proceeded to hurt him not once but twice. If I was this scared, I couldn't have fathomed how frightened he had been. Nighty-night. Ian had called it nighty-night. It must have said the same thing to him that it had said to me. I got up off the floor and left the bedroom. Closing the door behind me, I stood in the hall for a moment before rushing to the bathroom and throwing up in the toilet. It went on for quite some time, so long that I started to wonder if I would ever stop. When it finally did, I collapsed against the bathtub, lightheaded and close to passing out. There was a thud from inside Ian's bedroom. I lifted my head as best as I could and looked out through the bathroom doorway. I managed to focus my eyes just in time to see the knob on the bedroom door start to turn. There was an audible click, and the door slowly swung open. Nighty-Night's face took up much of the bedroom doorway as it grinned at me. I tried to stand up, but I was too weak from throwing up to manage. I could only watch as Nighty-Night pressed its head against the wood frame. It was too large to make it through the opening. My feeling of relief was only momentary. Nighty-Night started to push its head harder. Its face stretched back as the head slowly began to force its way through. It was like watching rubber being forced through a hole. "Nighty-Night," it rasped, the voice coming out distorted through its stretched lips. I had to leave, and I had to do so quickly. More of the monster's head was making it through the doorway every second, and it wouldn't be long before it was free of the room's confines. Ignoring my aches and pains, I forced myself into a standing position. My head swam, and once again I was sure that I was going to pass out, but somehow I was able to barely remain conscious. Nighty-Night's face was almost all the way through the doorway now. I stumbled into the hallway and pressed myself against the wall opposite from the creature. Being as careful as I could, I moved past it, feeling its hot breath on me as I did so. Its teeth were mere inches away from my body. I made it through the thin opening and hurried down the stairs. My foot caught on the last step. It wasn't enough to make me lose my balance entirely, but it did trip me up, and I stumbled forward before falling over the side of the couch. My head struck one of the armrests. I must have blacked out. I don't remember doing so, but the next thing I knew I was being awoken by the sound of knocking. I sat up on the couch and immediately regretted doing so, as the worst headache I had ever had greeted me. The knocking continued. It took me a few seconds to figure out that someone was banging on the front door. I stood up and took 2 steps towards the door before I remembered what had happened. I looked up the stairs, expecting to see Nighty Night squeeze his way down the hallway towards me, but the creature was gone. Still a bit dazed and not sure what else to do, I continued over to the front door and opened it. Standing on the other side was a large man in a police uniform. He was holding a clipboard under his arm and a pen in one hand. He nodded at me but didn't smile. He asked me my name, and I gave it to him. He informed me that he was here on the request of a social worker from the hospital, and that he would like to inspect my son's room. I moved aside and let him into the house. I closed the door behind him and led him up the stairs. I didn't want to go anywhere near the 2nd floor after what I experienced, but if I didn't comply with his request, it would soon undoubtedly impact my chances of getting Ian back as soon as possible. I took him to the still open bedroom door and we went inside. Excuse me. Nighty Night wasn't there, of course. The officer took the clipboard out from under his arm and asked me a few questions, and I answered them as best I could. He scribbled some notes on the paper as I spoke. Seemingly satisfied with my responses, he then got down on one knee and examined the safety rail that ran along the sides of Ian's bed. "Have you done anything in this room since you have brought your son to the hospital?" the officer asked. I looked around to try and figure out what happened, I told him. "Okay, but did you change the bed sheets or anything like that?" "What? No. I just moved things around and put them back. I didn't change the sheets." The officer nodded. "Well, it looks like Mr. Eaton was right." "Mr. Eaton?" "The social worker assigned to your son. See here? There's no blood on the sheets, but there are 3 streaks along the safety rail. They match up to where the poles are on the rail, Mr. Eaton. Mr. Eaton thinks that your son tried to get out of bed when he was still out of it and slid over the rail. He must have caught the poles just right through the fabric, and they dug into him. Cute kid, by the way. He said that he was going nighty-night, and that his back started feeling ouchy when he got out of bed." Eaton put things together from there. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The theory was wrong, and Ian's words had been completely misinterpreted. The blood trails and the spacing of the rail poles were pure coincidence. It was all working completely in my favor, though. "Good thing, too," he continued. If he hadn't figured it out, or if I had found anything to prove him wrong, we'd be having a very different conversation right now." Seemingly satisfied with everything, the officer left and went back to his car. I watched him through the window as he pulled out and headed down the street. The sun was starting to come up over the trees, and I could hear the family of robins in the front yard tree chirping. I decided it was close enough to morning to go to the hospital and get my son back. It went smoother than I expected. The social worker had filled me out some quick paperwork so that they had my statements for the record, and after that he led me to a patient room on the opposite side of the hospital. He had barely opened the door for me when Ian came running up to me barefooted with his little hospital gown waving behind him and practically jumped into my arms. He hugged me tightly, and, being careful to avoid the white bandages covering his stitched cuts, I hugged him back. We stood there for what seemed to be an eternity, me crying and telling me all about his stay in the hospital. That was 2 months ago. The house that I raised Ian in is currently for sale, and my realtor tells me that there are a number of people interested even though it hasn't been listed very long. A seller's market, she calls it. I've only been back twice since that night, once to pick up our clothes and other necessary items, and once to pack the remainder of our belongings and put them into storage. Both times were during the middle of the day, and each time I made arrangements for Ian to stay with somebody instead of accompanying me. We've been living at a hotel on the other side of town. My long-term plan is for us to move far away, possibly all the way to the coast. I want to put as much distance between us and this place as possible. Last week, I read on a newspaper article in the local paper about an officer that killed his wife. According to the report, he had said that he had just started to doze off one night when a giant monster appeared in his room. He had grabbed a gun that he kept in the nightstand and fired off 5 shots at it. The monster disappeared, but his wife had been walking into the room at the time and the 2 bullets struck her, killing her almost instantly. No one believed him, of course. How could they possibly have? It was a ludicrous story. He seemed so convinced that he was telling the truth that a psychological evaluation was ordered before formal charges were filed. 3 days later, he was found dead in his cell. Not just dead, but damn near decapitated. The police were baffled. He was alone in his cell, and there was nothing he could have used to do that to himself. The guards think that one of the other prisoners got in and did the job. Former cops don't have a lot of friends in jail, after all. They're at a loss to explain just how a prisoner could have gotten to his cell and caused so much damage without alerting anyone. Excuse me. Excuse me. Ah. Oh, that was surprising. Oh. It was the same officer that had come to my house. I know what happened to him. It was the same thing that almost happened to both myself and my son. It was nighty-night. I think I've got the creature appearing and disappearing act figured out. I was on the verge of becoming unconscious both times that I saw it. The first time I was almost asleep, and the second time I was trying not to pass out. And I actually did black out. It didn't harm me. The officer said in his statement that he was falling asleep when he saw the monster in his room. I think nighty-night exists in that ever so brief moment between awake and asleep. When you enter into that moment, you can see it, and it can look right back at you. Or maybe I'm wrong and it's always there, watching and waiting until it can comfort you in that short time when your world and its are connected. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I doubt that I ever will. Knowing exactly what Ian had gone through might prove more insight. But it doesn't matter. I refuse to ask him about it. He's sleeping through the night now that his wounds have mostly healed. I'm not going to dredge up bad memories that could only hurt him. He deserves to be safe and protected from things both natural and unnatural. He's been through enough already. I'm afraid that he's going to be through more before this is all over. Last night, as I watched him sleeping on the bed in our hotel room, I started to drift off in the uncomfortable chair in the corner of the room. I was just about out when I heard something through the glass window to my right. It was faint, as if coming from a quite distance away, but I recognized it immediately. Nighty-night, the raspy voice called out into the darkness. I jerked awake and immediately stood up to pack our things, being careful not to wake up Ian as I did so. He needed the rest. We were going to be on the road for a long, long time. Ooh, that was pretty good! That was pretty good! Oh my gosh! Tim Sprague, that was amazing! That was super, super good! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, okay. That was creepy! It's like sleep paralysis demon, but like right before you go to sleep kind of deal, right? Oh my gosh, that was so creepy. I loved that. I loved that. I loved that. I loved that. That was so good. So good. So good. Okay, let's see if we can read another one. Oh my gosh. Alright, let's try this one. That was a good one. That was a good one. Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one. I just found another one. Another long one, too. Another long one. Let's see. This one's called The Spider in the Orange, written by Jasmine Rose. Hold on one moment. I'm going to have a sip of coffee. It's cold now, but I'm going to drink it anyway. Oh my gosh. I am like sniffly and coffee today. Ugh, I am so sorry. Let's see. Spider in the Orange by Jasmine Rose. Winter is a brutal child of Mother Nature. It acts like a tyrant as it lays siege all over the land, claiming multiple casualties in its wake. That's why many animals run in fear for their lives. They will burrow underneath the earth and sleep until the cold has left, or they will fly to warmer lands. It's not that hard to escape with your life, but she doesn't have that luxury. She isn't the creature that sleeps through winter, and she has no wings. Instead, she's gifted with a cephalothorax, 8 long legs, and an abdomen that is covered in long, bushy, wiry hairs that are only good at telling her if something is getting too close to her person. They offer little in the ways of protecting her against the cold. Of course, there are others of her species that hibernate. She just so happens not to be one of them. The spider tucked her spindly legs further beneath her body to conserve as much warmth as possible. A hard task considering she's a cold-blooded arachnid. Still, it feels as if they would fall off at the slightest provocation, and she would very much like to avoid that. She's currently tucked into a hole in the side of her tree. The spider had dug it out for herself. In the beginning, it was only to have somewhere to sleep comfortably, but when the leaves began to fall, she turned her little burrow into a nest. She copied the schematics of a bird's nest since they always seem to be happy sleeping on twigs, leaves, and grass. Her only issue is the entrance. Depending on the direction of the wind, cold breezes trespass into her burrow. You can run from winter, but you cannot hide. As if to further cement this belief, a strong gust assaulted her. It bit into her exoskeleton and encased her soul. She shivered harshly. What she thinks is funny is that the cold isn't even what's giving her a hard time. It can get below freezing and she can still survive. No. The current issue is that her daily diet consists of a variety of insects and the occasional lizard, all of which have been nearly wiped out because of the change in season. Which in retrospect is normal this time of year, but the spider knows this time is different. There is less prey than usual. She is sure of it. The cold isn't going to be her downfall. Starvation is. The spider can't even remember what her last meal was. All she knows is that her stomach has been growling at her non-stop, begging for a morsel of sustenance. She's been begging as well. Every day she ventures out of her burrow to check on her webbing. Her web is a large, intricate piece of artwork. She has spent many months crafting it to be strong enough to catch a bird in case one entangles itself in it and is large enough to improve her odds. So far, her web has borne no fruit, and which is why she has taken to looking towards the heavens and praying for a break. She shifted. If things continue the way they are, she won't live to see the first touches of spring. The spider doesn't want to die. As troubling as her life is, she enjoys it. The land she lives on has been hers since it procured it away from her late mother and siblings. It had been a bloody battle to see who was the strongest among them. In the end, she killed over 100 of her siblings. The rest had fled with their metaphorical tails between their legs. As for her mother, well, the old arachnic put up quite the fight, which the spider appreciated, so it pained her when she delivered the killing bite to her mother's head. She earned the right to lord over her territory. She didn't want to see her reign end so soon, especially if her end isn't something glorious. Dying by hunger isn't the way she would like to go. If anything, she always thought she would like to die while trying to defeat a mighty foe. An honorable death is what every predator dreams of. She sees herself as an apex killing machine, and she deserves better. The sound of her growling stomach makes her cringe. Perhaps it would be best if she forced herself to sleep deeply, extremely deep. There had never been any shame in dying in one's sleep. It is an uncomfortable phenomenon. Besides, she thinks that dying while dreaming is a pleasant way to leave the world. She'd been completely ignorant of what is happening, lost in her dreams of warmer days. That did sound a lot better than staring out into the void of white that laid outside her burrow, and waiting for her time to come. She closed her eyes. It is very hard for her to force herself to sleep. The afternoon light is as bright as ever and is telling her brain that she should be alert. Still, she keeps her eyes closed, counting to 1,000, hoping the numbers will bore her. 1, 2, 3, 4. It was when she eventually reaches 953, the voices disturbed her. Wanting a peaceful death is too much to ask for, it seems. She stretched out her limbs from underneath her, giving her cephalothorax a shake before exiting her burrow. The spider crawls along the tree branch up to its very tip. Perching herself at the end of the branch, the spider peers down below. It doesn't take her long to find the source of the voices. 2 humans are walking along the ground. It's a female and a male human. They are circling the base of her tree as they look it up and down. She doesn't know what they are searching for, but if you ask her, they are being very rude. Inconsiderate, even. Don't they know that she's trying to die? Instantly, she hates them and wishes for them to go away. Of course they don't and keep walking in circles. Is this the tree, Charlotte? The male asks. He's squinting up in the direction of the spider, but she doubts he notices her. She is pretty big, near the size of a yellow-rumped warbler, but that doesn't mean she's easily spotted. A master hunter also has to be a master sneak. I mean, it should be, Bert. All the trees look alike without their leaves, but we followed the path correctly. Okay, how do you know the spider isn't dead, though? It's like 23 degrees right now, and I'm covered in head to toe in winter clothes, and yet I'm still feeling like a popsicle. The female keenly scans each branch. I know it's alive because the spider has been living in this section of the park for a long time now. It came last year in November, which had just been as cold as now, and was busy attacking a lizard. The spider recalled that experience. The reptile had been a surprise when she had woken up to one morning. It was larger than a normal-sized lizard and had given her quite a fight. In the end, a pompous raven had swooped in and snatched her prey from her. There! The spider startled the male's sudden outburst. It's on the 4th branch on the top towards the right. It's on the edge and I swear it's looking at us, Charlotte. If that thing jumps down, I'm squashing it. The spider is probably wanting to be fed. I've seen the patrons toss insects into its web, so I bet the spider has come to associate humans with food. Kind of like how birds hang around picnic tables in the park. Can spiders even do that? Aren't they kind of dumb because of their small brains? The spider bristled at his words. She may be many things, but being an imbecile isn't one of them. Her body's tiny, but her mind is as vast as the heavens. They have to be kind of smart if they're able to avoid us most of the time. Do you have anything to feed it? The female asked, reaching towards the backpack on the male's back. Stop your pawing! It's not like I remember to pack my usual lunch of grasshoppers and beetles, he replied, pushing a female off him. I saw you put some snacks in your backpack before we left your apartment. So what? Do you want to give the spider some Pringles? I'm pretty sure it's not going to work out how you want it. Let's just see what you have, and I'll decide if it's healthy for her or not. The spider watched in amusement as the two argued back and forth. Their erratic movements make the whole show even more ridiculous. At one point, the female chased after the male around the base of the tree. She quite enjoyed the distraction in her life. Better to watch other creatures make a fool of themselves than to focus on her hunger. We're not going hunting for things for it to eat, and I'm not wasting my money on buying it food at the pet store. It's not my problem. Bert, you know I don't have my wallet with me, and it's going to take me a 3-hour drive to get back home. You're originally going to lend me the money anyway, the female said with a pout. I'm giving you gas money and paying for dinner because you came out here to visit me, and I'm not a mean brother. Besides, the thing that has lived in the park was probably a long time. The thing has lived in the park for probably a long time. It's doing fine on its own so far. That may be, but I don't want to risk it. I need to take a picture of it for my portfolio. It's due in a couple of weeks, and the spider will be a perfect addition. I want to keep it alive so I can grab my camera from your apartment. First of all, stop forgetting things in other places. Secondly, the spider will last the 20 minutes it takes to get back to my place. What about traffic? Back and forth the two argued. The spider felt flattered that her mere presence could cause such a fuss. She can already feel the tension coming to a boil as the male and female face each other. An obvious battle of wills. You're only in an unforgiving mood because Fern dumped your sorry butt. Oh. The spider can see the look of instant regret on the female's face as soon as the word left her mouth. The male is beyond furious at this point. His hands balled into a fist and he let out a heavy breath. It made the spider wonder if she'll witness a killing. It wouldn't be the first time such a thing happened between two humans in front of her tree. It usually brings even more humans as they start bustling like an active beehive over the place. The last time had been entertaining and she loved to witness another show. You want to feed the spider? The male responded, venom lacing his words. Then I'll feed it. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a large round orange object. The female gasped, but she isn't nearly as surprised as the spider when the round thing came hurling towards it at an alarming speed. She didn't even have a chance to react before it hit her square on. To say it hurts is sorely downplaying how hard the male threw the thing. She's surprised it didn't outright squash her, considering the fact it's practically the same size as her. Not that she isn't grateful to have survived the impact. The orange thing had only managed to dislodge her from the branch and sent her flying into her webbing. If she'd fallen to the ground, then she would have been severely hurt. Or if she landed on one of the humans, they would have certainly turned her body into a bloody pulp. Slowly, she realigned each segment of her body and all 8 of her appendages. It took a while for all her eyes to stop staring off in different directions. By the time she felt a semblance of normalcy, the 2 humans already wandered off to who knows where, leaving behind a parting gift. The orange thing managed to save itself as well. Towards the lower part of her webbing, it got itself entangled. Now that she could take a look around, she could see her days of hard work had become nothing more than a garbled hurricane. She had put her blood, sweat, and tears into creating a perfect netting of webs. All that time all unraveled in a matter of seconds by an absurd copycat sun that is entirely in the wrong shade of orange. If she could cry, she would. If she could scream, then she would curse the humans. Oh, life. It's even more heartless than winter. She moved towards the orange thing and tried to see if she could dislodge it. If she could manage to get it free, then it would take no time at all for her to rebuild her web back to its former glory. A little shove there, a pull here. Nothing. Consarn it. Alright, if she couldn't get the forsaken thing down, then maybe, just maybe she could eat it. That's what started this whole torrid affair in the first place. Normally, she would appreciate the human female for trying to help her in her time of need, but also normally projectile objects weren't disfiguring her web. The orange thing is big because of its round shape. It takes her a while to figure out how to grasp a hold of it. She has to lay on top of it and hug it with all 8 of her legs while digging her claws at the end of each of her tarsuses into the flesh of the thing. Being so close to the thing made her senses buzz from the citrus it produced. A rather tangy smell. She twitched her mandibles before taking a big bite. It's instant regret on her part as a wave of disgusting flavor overtakes her. She slinks away from the offending thing. It's useless food. She can't eat it and she can't get rid of it. Her life is such a travesty. The spider raises onto her back legs, a poised attack position, but there is no physical enemy she can sink her mandibles into and let out all her aggression onto. She lets her body fall forward onto the bark of the tree. Right then and there she decides to give up. Constantly fighting for her life is only appealing when it's a fair fight. Give her a hungry bird looking to make a meal out of her, or at least another spider looking to claim her lands. Not an empty feeling in her stomach and inedible food. She dragged herself to a nearby branch and traveled back to her burrow. She wouldn't move from inside her burrow. It's her final resting place. Let this be her tomb that will only be uncovered when enough time has passed and another spider decides to take her over her territory. Eventually, she returned to counting numbers in her head, and soon after she fell asleep. Minutes, hours, and then eventually days passed by without the spider moving a muscle. Her limbs felt cramped and she could only manage to sleep for a few hours before waking up again, but she's determined to die. At this rate, she's going to give it another week before her spider soul escapes its confining mortal body. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Her abdomen twitches. The buzzing noise is coming from outside. It almost sounds like the buzzing of flies, but she knows that's too good to be true. It's an audible delusion brought about her by being near the brink of death. Her mind is trying to give her something enticing to pull her to the other side. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Delusion or not, she needed to know. The spider hastily exits her burrow. In doing so, one of her legs snags onto the edge of the opening in the tree and makes her tremble forward. She winds up on her back, staring at the blue sky in front of her. That's when a little black figure flies into her vision. It hovers before landing right on one of her legs sticking up. She can't believe it. A fly. A bulbous black fly. The spider leapt for the fly, crazed in her efforts to finally have a bite to eat. She misses completely, so she starts to chase it. The fly zigzags its way through each strand of her web. It's sheer luck that the insect doesn't ensnare itself. Flies have no pattern to their flight path, so she thinks quickly on her feet. Instead of outright capturing it in her mandibles, she decides to use her longest leg to kick the fly into a nearby cluster of webs. She takes a shot when it flies backwards towards her. It's a direct hit from one of her back legs and the fly is sent spiraling out of control. She follows its path as it heads in the direction of the orange thing that she not only realizes is completely swarmed by hundreds of other flies. On an average summer day, she can't even get that many. They only gather around dead things, or piles of trash left by humans in plastic bins near the area they eat. And yet here they are. The spider wastes no time as she makes her move. It's methodical how she traps one fly after another. A good majority of them are caught in the webbing around the orange thing, but she can't be too careful. A spider can never have too many flies caught in her web. It takes her an entire day to secure copious amounts of buzzing insects. There are so many she can't risk trapping any more if she doesn't want them to weigh her down. Her web is still broken from the initial assault by the male human. By the time she encased the last fly in a cocoon of webs, she's utterly exhausted, though she still manages a shimmying joy at the turn of her luck. She then decides to take stock of her bounty. It's as she's looking around that her eyes fall back to the orange thing. The spider comes to understand why there are so many flies. Flies are attracted to rot. The orange thing can hardly be called orange anymore. It's turning an off color with hints of green fuzz. The usual ball shape is deflated like a saggy flower. It seems while she was dying, so was the orange thing. The spider isn't dying anymore, though. No, this buffet will last her through winter. The fate of the orange thing feels unsettling. She hasn't spent any time with it, and she can't say she feels any particular attachment to the thing, but she can understand it being at its death's door. The thing can't even hunt for itself since it has no legs, claws, or anything. It just sits where it originally landed, decay attacking every piece of it. Fortune may shine upon the spider, but the same cannot be said for the orange thing. Without thinking, she crawls to it. The webbing around it is loose, since she has to stretch to accommodate it to a larger size. In no time at all, the webbing will let go and cause the thing to fall in the dirt below, to be consumed by other instincts, or to be squashed by passing humans. She may have wanted that in the beginning, but how can she be so cruel to something that gave her a second chance at life? At that moment, the spider makes a decision. She begins to warm the mechanics within her body to produce webbing. She encircles the orange thing around and around, connecting silver strands. Her idea is to copy the shape of a bird's nest. It will act as a bowl, so when the orange thing eventually turns into mush, all of it will remain inside the web. It takes her a while, but when she's satisfied that the nest is secure, she climbs into the nest with the orange thing. From first-hand experience, she knows how awful it is to be alone. For as long as she can, she will keep the orange thing company until it's no more than a puddle. It's the least she can do. Her days become just that. They alter between her conscious efforts to restore her web, eating, and tending to the orange thing. It's a comfortable routine. One that eventually leads to her talking to it. Spiders don't have the same verbal language as regular animals. It's a bit quieter and harder to follow. The orange thing, though, has no trouble. This is mainly due to its inability to do, well, anything. Which doesn't bother the spider at all. A great listener is typically hard to come by. By the time spring manages to chase away the last remnants of the winter, the spider has finished her new web, and new insects begin, besides flies, get caught. It's great, but she notices how much faster the warm weather wears on the orange thing. Even with the leaves returning to offer shade, there is no way to slow the progress of decay. She caressed the squishy skin of the orange thing. Love isn't a word she's well versed in. Her mother never loved her. Typical of spiders, really, but she's seen it with mother squirrels and their young, and with humans, whether it's couples in hand or parents playing with their offspring. Without a doubt, she's come to love the orange thing. When it's time, she'll cocoon it to keep it safe from buzzing things looking to feed on its curse, and she'll mourn for a very long time. Bert, the web got bigger! The spider reluctantly stepped away from the orange thing to peek at the humans who decide to bother her. One human is aiming a contraption she's seen before. A camera. It makes a weird shuddering sound before letting off blinding lights. She learned not to stare directly at those. She tilts her head. These humans are familiar. Yes, it's the humans that gifted her with the orange thing. Oh, by the spider deities. She wanted to thank them. Without the male, she'd have died. And even worse, she would have died never getting to know the orange thing. I can't find the spider, though. Do you think it's hiding? I thought you said it associates us with food. Well, the last time we waited for food, you threw a big orange at it. You probably made it scared of people again. Whose fault is that? Mine, I know. Can we just look for the spider, please? I need to top my last project and bring something new to the tables. I wasn't able to get the picture last time around, so things have to go differently. Yeah. You go to the left and I'll take the right side of the tree. Well, if there's one way to thank the male for bringing her soulmate, it's by allowing them to get a closer look at her. She's never been one to let her personal space be breached, but she can make an exception this one time. Being blinded by a flash of light is worth it if she can repay the male. The spider used her back legs to attach the end of a string to the web to the branch she's on, then gracefully leapt down. Again, no one is more shocked than her when the same male she wished to thank hit her with his hand. The male is strong, therefore she is sent back flying into the tree. She expects to crash into a branch of the trunk, but it's worse when she sees where she'll land. The spider tries in vain to control her trajectory. It's already too late, though. She collides with the orange thing. After eating too many flies, she gained a bit of weight. A blessing before a curse now. Her weight is what caused the orange thing to bounce out of its nest. No. She scrambles. Again, it's already too late. The orange thing slams into the face of the male. The male sputters as a chunk of rotten flesh and meat of the orange paints his face. Ew, what is this? The male demands as he wipes the remains off his face, chucking bits of spoiled produce onto the ground. What if it's the spider's egg sac or something, the female suggests. That's it, I'm going back home. I need a long hot shower and some bleach. What about my picture? Bert! Bert! Off the mail went, completely oblivious to the damage she caused. Her eyes didn't leave the spot where her beloved met its demise. There isn't even a single trace of orange thing left. What made it to the ground got trampled into the dirt, and the rest of the mail will be washing it away somewhere and she didn't know. She can't cocoon it like she originally planned. She can't do anything. No more gentle caresses, no more soft-spoken words. No final goodbye. She stayed still. When the rain fell, she didn't move. When the sun blazed hot, she didn't seek shade. Even when ants began to crawl over her body, she didn't move an inch. What is the purpose of living when she'll always be alone? The orange thing had listened to her, comforted her, and given her kinship. Spiders are natural creatures of isolation. They can't stand to be around another for too long, especially when there is a lack of food. Her territory is grand, but she never dared to allow another to share her domain. There hadn't been at any point in it. The orange thing had been different. It hadn't fought her for food nor for her territory. It didn't fight at all. To her, the orange thing was an uncorrupted, pure in its ignorance of the harshness found in nature. She wanted to be with it, to let it wash away the loneliness that she lived in. It just isn't fair. The orange thing deserved to have a peaceful end of rotting, but that male took its chance away. That insufferable mongrel deserved a passage to the Hades, or would be tortured for all eternity. The spider got up. She still had work to do. Already she wasted precious time moping about. Not wanting to squander any more, she rose from her position. She's agile as she uses her webbing to swing across from the branches of one tree to another. She's on a mission. If another spider takes her land away while she's gone, then so be it. This is a one-way journey anyway. It takes her days to reach the forest border. Her body is fatigued and she's starving, but she doesn't entirely compute in her mind. She must admit that the world beyond the forest is spectacular. The man-made structure towers high into the sky, and she has never seen so many humans in one place before. They're like ants in their chaotic, although purposeful movement. Then there are vehicles they ride, faster than any animal she's ever seen. There's so much for her eyes to ingest, that she must stay focused. She can't allow herself to be distracted. When she underestimates the sheer volume of faces she'll have to look at to find a single male again. It's going to take an overwhelming amount of time. She pushes forward anyway. It's by skill and instinct that she doesn't get trampled on as she traverses the human-made jungle. Some of the humans are unaware of her presence, while others she frightened because of how close she comes to their faces when she thinks she found the male. Male human after male human, she peers at their faces, but none are him. The spider even attempts to climb one of the tall buildings for a better vantage point, which leads her to almost get dizzy as all her eyes stare off at different males at the same time. At one point she comes across another spider of the opposite gender. He is smaller but is attracted to her given the time of the season. Any other time he'd know better than to cross her path, and at any other time she'd ignore him. Just this once she joins in the dance with him. They have their affair, lasting a single night, and then come morning he becomes her first and last meal. She had nothing against the other. It's just their nature to mate and consume. She keeps moving, delving further and further into the human world. Then one day it starts to drizzle before an onslaught of rain pours onto the land. She is forced to search for cover. Her eyes catch the sight of a yellow canopy. It's the closest thing to her seeing as she's on a traffic pole. She produces a single webbed strand to attach to the pole and then leaps across the big gorge between her and the canopy. As she's gliding through the air, she realizes too late that she misjudged how wide the gap is. She misses the canopy entirely. It's only a miracle that she lands on the head of a female human heading underneath the canopy. The human takes her along through the door, and the spider failed to see. It's only, they head inside a small shop that is filled with all types of produce when you first walk in. There are some shelves to the right that contain an odd assortment of boxed and canned items. The female is shaking the rain off of her while the spider struggles not to be dislodged. Your daddy said I should bring an umbrella. I should have listened, the female said in an annoyed tone of voice. We're just going to see if the store has any, and even if they don't, we wait out the brunt of this rain here, Petey. Mommy! Mommy! The spider looked down from the female's head and saw a child pointing right at her. She guessed it to be the female's offspring, trying to warn her of the gigantic spider hitching a ride. The spider glared at the child. She understood and couldn't blame him, but she knew this wasn't going to end well. Yes, Peter, you can have candy, but only one. The child shook his head. No, Mommy, there's a big spider on your head. She felt the female freeze. Then slowly the female raised a hand to her head. The spider took the opportunity to jump from the female's head to her hand and then immediately launched herself into a pile of crescent-shaped yellow things. Where did it go? Where did it go? The female screamed in terror. You threw it into the bananas, Mommy. Some nearby patrons inside the shop are drawn to the commotion, with one of them heading in the direction of the spider. The spider didn't hesitate to move between the so-called bananas. They were bundled together quite nicely, but she managed to squeeze between them. She could feel them move the bananas in their search for her. It's clear, the spider probably ran off. The humans speak more to each other as the spider stays put. She waits until the voices fade away before she peeks out. The mother and child are gone, and everyone else is back to normal. The spider doesn't want to stay. Too many humans are there. Plus, she's in an enclosed building that only has one exit too heavy for her to open by herself. That leaves her feeling very vulnerable. Bert, your doctor is the one that said you need to eat more fruits and vegetables. I'm not making you get them for the fun of it. Hey, I eat pretty healthily. You should see how much fiber I consume. They're chocolate brownies. How healthy can they be? This is why I don't like shopping with you, Charlotte. You mock what I buy to eat. Then you start putting stuff into the cart and expect me to pay for your groceries. The man said, gesturing to the cart nearly filled to the brim. I'll leave you alone if you get a dozen apples and oranges. 1 apple. The female crosses her arms. How about 1 bunch of bananas and a single orange, then? Fine, but I'm making banana shakes with chocolate. His words caused the female to mumble. The spider delved back into her hiding spot when the female came nearer. By the graces, instead of trying to find them herself, the 2 humans came to her. All she needed to do is pray that they chose the bunch of bananas she's in. The spider crossed her legs and prayed that they choose her. She can feel movement around her until a harsh jolt has grabbed the skin of the yellow crescents. Has her grabbing the skin of the yellow crescents. She had been chosen. The male and female walk away, heading to the checkout area, completely unaware of the stowaway. The bananas are bagged and then paid for along with the rest of the food the 2 buy. It is a struggle for the spider to keep her calm as she feels it getting hot inside the bag and the lack of oxygen making its way to her. The humans have left the store, but she doesn't know how long it'll be until they make it to the male's dwelling. The spider makes herself think about everything and anything else besides her struggle to breathe. She doesn't want to escape the bag out of desperation, having come so far to just lose it all. She finds herself thinking about the orange thing and how beautiful it looked in the sunlight. I want to see these fruits gone. Come a month from now when me, Mom, and Dad come down to visit, the female said in an authoritative voice. You make it seem like I'll leave fruit sitting there for an entire month. I'd have thrown them out if they were spoiled. Considering this has happened 3 times before, I have my doubts, so make sure to eat them. Yes, ma'am, the male responded with a mocking tone. The spider almost lost her grip on the bananas when they were roughly taken out of the bag and placed down. Don't let this food go to waste, Bert. That's money down the drain if you do. Yeah, come on, I'll walk you out the building. The spider crawls from between the bananas to survey the male's den. She had been placed on a table within the kitchen. From her vantage point, she could see into the living room and down a hallway with 2 closed doors. The living room is sparsely furnished with a place to sit and a miniature version of the table she sits on. In all, she felt smug that her territory is far grander than this. Her tree wouldn't even fit inside the cramped abode. With nothing else to peer in, she decides to return to her original position with the bananas. She will camp inside for as long as the male doesn't find her. She only turned the body a fraction of an inch when her eyes are caught by a familiar sight. It can't be. Can it? The spider doesn't believe in the dead walking. Once your immortal soul has passes, is it unable to return to the realm from which it came. That is a fact. She knows this, but a sliver of hope shines inside her arachnid heart. She hesitantly crawls into the orange thing, reaching out with one of her limbs when she is close enough. The spider touches it. Definitely real. Outstanding happiness blooms within her thorax. It's alive! She hugs it with all 8 of her limbs, squishing her face into the bumpy texture of its skin. The spider is content for about a second more until she smells it. This orange thing has a similar scent, but it's not a perfect match. It's not her orange thing. Her heart breaks a little. An imbecilic thought it had been. She needs to remind herself that the orange thing is gone and she'll never see it again in this life, only the next. Suddenly, she drifts away from it. She leaves it behind as she crawls in between the bananas. Her hiding place is her new home for some time. At first, she had been afraid that the male would pick through the stuff, intending to satisfy his hunger, and find her all too soon, but he doesn't. She sits there for so long without being disturbed that the bananas start to stink of oncoming decay. They begin turning a brownish color before black and white puffy stuff make their appearance. It's only when they begin to smell does any change happen. And good timing, too. Gosh dang it, I just made a bioweapon in my fruit bowl. People are gonna think I'm trying to fumigate myself in here. The male says with a look of disgust. Trash time for you, and Charlotte will be none the wiser. He goes and grabs the trash bag. The bananas are so black and leaking that he almost vomits right there, but regardless of how he felt, he needed to trash them. His apartment can't be smelling like rotten fruit. It could be used as evidence against him. He would prefer to avoid being scolded by his mom and sister. He hesitantly reaches for the stem of the bananas and grabs hold. So gross. He's going to toss them into a plastic bag, but then he feels something off. Bert looks at the bananas, twisting them from side to side. There. He's sure he spots movement? Bert peers closer and then sees a small hole open. Rotten banana juices spew out of it, causing him to drop the decomposing produce onto the floor. The impact from the floor makes the bananas burst like a bomb. That's bad by itself, but to make matters worse, tiny black dots flooded onto the floor. It takes him a moment to realize the dots are moving like a horde his way. What the? Nope! Bert screams, turning away from the tiny evils before him, intending on exiting out of his apartment front door. Only, as he takes his first step, he's assaulted in the face by something with 8 legs that is so very hairy. The spider originally planned on staring the male in the eyes as she attacked, intending on seeing the life leave his body. Unfortunately, her seething rage took over and overrode her need for the dramatic. She bit him without a second thought. Gah! The male yelped. His cry of pain thrilled her, so she bit him again and again in rapid succession. Of course, he wasn't going to allow her onslaught to continue. The spider isn't stunned when the male wrenches her off her face, throwing her onto the kitchen table. The male thinks he can escape, but she knows differently. Her bite is venomous. It works by forcing the body to seize, and then the prey has trouble breathing due to intense swelling in the throat, then finally death. The whole process is rather long, so as the prey is living through this, they also have to suffer from the intense pain of the bite areas. Considering the spider dealt many bites to the male's nose and forehead, he will be in excruciating agony until he dies. While that is well and good, it's not even the grandest part for her. The spider always had the capability to lay thousands of eggs. She never felt the need to find a mate to do so before, but the scheme took root in her head when she first set out on her mission for revenge. The spider itched to the edge of the table and looked down below. Her children are like a plague as they washed over the helpless man. He's unable to do anything when they crawl up his leg and underneath his clothing. Bert can feel the little legs scampering across his bare skin. They make their way past his knees, past his private areas, up to his chest and to his head. Some crawl around in his hair, making his head itch, while others seek the dark opening within his ears, nose, and mouth. Unfortunately, Bert was screaming when the venom took effect. It froze his face as his mouth was open, allowing for the baby arachnids to enter. He wanted to sneeze from the spiders tickling his nose hairs. His hearing became filled with the rubbing sounds of the spiders' babies as they mashed their bodies together to all fit in his ear canal. Maybe the worst feeling is the spiders crawling within his mouth. They make him want to gag as they hang from his uvula. They are marching down his throat, making him taste the dryness of their shells. The little spiders don't make it very far before a riot breaks out. The swelling of Bert's esophagus make them feel too encaged for comfort. Tears pool in Bert's eyes as the mob inside him scratched the interior lining of his throat. Eventually, a few managed to escape. The escapees began weaving strands of webbing in between his teeth like a morbid version of dental floss. Everything gets worse as some babies disperse around his body. They each take a patch of skin as their own to attempt to burrow underneath his flesh. They will feed on him for months, living in quiet harmony. That is until they become of age, and they will fight until only one is left. She won't live to see it, but the spider doesn't need to, nor care to. She's completed her quest. It was the only thing keeping her alive. Without further purpose, she has nothing else to live for. This doesn't sadden her. Instead, she finds some peace. Retribution has been had. Her dearest can rest easy in the afterlife with the knowledge that the spider has proven her devotion and love. Soon she will join it. Already she can feel death spreading through the hollows of her body. The spider turns away from the sight of her children feeding. It's customary for an elder creature at death's door to seek a place of solace. She's the only slightest bit myth that she couldn't take her final breath near the site where her beloved perished. But maybe she can't have the next best thing. The doppelganger of her beloved is still on the table. It looks too much like the other, especially since this orange thing is a similar state of decay. The spider crept to the rotting thing and snaked her heavy body beside it. She snuggled closer to it and breathed in the scent of mold and citrus. It warmed her soul. It may not be the orange thing that she grew to love, but she couldn't be faulted for letting herself pretend even for this moment. The spider shut her eyes, never opening them again. Ah! 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 Yeah. Okay, for the record, I don't like spiders. I always try to do a catch and release whenever I find spiders in my room, but I don't like spiders. It's so creepy. So creepy crawly. It's creepy crawly. Oh, it's so uncomfortable. Oh, that was so uncomfortable. Oh, so uncomfortable. Okay, that's a horrible way to die. That's a terrible way to die. Oh God, that poor dude. Oh, that poor dude. Oh, I got the worst creepy crawlies. Oh, that poor dude. Oh, oh God. Okay, that was. Well, it was a good story. That was a very romantic story. But oh, the way that dude died. The way that dude died, that made my skin crawl. Ugh. Ugh. Oh God, that was a good one. It was very romantic, but also, creepy crawlies. Excuse me. Absolutely, it was vengeance. That's what you call true love right there. That was a perfectly planned out vengeance. It was lovely. That was beautiful. It was poetic. It was also an uncomfortable visual. But you know what? I respect it. I respect it. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's see. How do we find a classic? Oh, why don't we find one of the classic ones? Oh, I gotta see. Let's see. Ooh, Ben Drowned. That's a classic. Oh my gosh, that's such a classic. I love that one. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna pop it open. But yes, Jasmine Rose? Yes, Jasmine Rose wrote The Spider in the Orange. That was lovely. It was so romantic and so creepy crawly. I loved it. That was lovely. Thank you, Jasmine Rose. Thank you for your story. It was wonderful. Wonderful. Let's go. Let's see. Now we're gonna go to a classic. You guys remember this classic? Anyone else remember this classic? It's a long classic. Oh my God, I forgot how long this was. How long is this? I forgot. Oh my gosh. The page is still loading, but 47 minutes! This is a 47-minute long one. Oh my God, I completely forgot. It doesn't even say the author's name anymore. Oh my gosh. I think I should probably find another one. What's this one? I'm gonna find another one because this one is quite long, and I don't want it to take up the entirety of the stream. I definitely want to do a dedicated stream to reading the classic creepypastas. That would be lovely. I think my next creepypasta reading I will do that. So, pick up Jeff the Killer, Slenderman, Ben Drowned, all those classic Smile Dog, all those classic ones. Yes, truly a horrible way to go with someone with a huge arachnophobia. I'm crying a bit, but it was neat. It was really nice. I actually really enjoyed that. Yes, I really enjoyed that one. I think I might actually save that one. I might save that one to my favorite stories. That was very good. It made me feel so uncomfortable, but it also was so romantic. I love that. Let's see. Okay, here's another one. Here's one that's short. This is a short one. How to Summon Your Imaginary Friend, written by Neil Lakeman. This one's 6 minutes long, so pretty quickly. Let's go. Think back to the days when you were a child. where you were only genuine concern was what sort of ways you can entertain yourself for the day. Perhaps you spent your time playing a video game that you still enjoy today. Or maybe you were really into sports, having your parents drive you to practices and games at hours they would rather still be in bed for. Perhaps you spent your childhood exploring bodies of wilderness instead, trudging through creeks, climbing trees, etc. Whether your childhood activities consisted of, it's possible you had an invisible companion of sorts. An imaginary friend, if you will. What would you do if I were to tell you there's a way to talk to them again? See, that imaginary friend you had wasn't just a figment of your overactive imagination. Instead, what you saw was the spirit of a child, cruelly taken from this world before their allotted time. And trust me, these spirits aren't too happy about their untimely death. This is why they fade away as you age. Children are more sensitive to this sort of thing. As you grow, you gradually lose the ability to see and commune with them. Anyway, as I previously stated, there's a way you can reconnect with your old friend via a simple ritual. Though before I continue, I cannot advise you to do this in good conscience. There is no shortage of ways it can go horribly wrong. There's no real reward for this either. You won't receive great wealth, vast knowledge, immortality, or anything you'd like to find in other rituals. But I doubt that would throw too many of you off. The seed of curiosity has been planted, and for some of you, that's all the reason you need. So I shall tell you what you need and give you some helpful suggestions. You will need an isolated area where you can start a fire and something that somehow connects you to your childhood. This could be a toy, baseball glove, childhood photo album, etc. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be the exact item from your childhood. The actual object doesn't matter as much as the bond between you and your old companion it represents. I highly recommend that you have a reliable vehicle with a full tank of gas to see any repairs it may need. Trust me, the better condition your car is, the better off you'll be. Oh, and leave the keys in the ignition. Of course, if you don't have a car, that's fine, but that will reduce your chances of surviving greatly. To do the ritual, go to the area where you'll build your fire any time the night has fallen. It doesn't matter what time, just as long as you complete the ritual before midnight. Regarding the fire, all you have to do is ensure that you won't wind up burning down the surrounding area. Once you've got a fire going, look at the childhood object you have brought and allow yourself to reflect on your childhood. Relive all those happy memories of growing up, then throw the object into the fire. Then close your eyes and say the name of your imaginary friend 3 times. Keep your eyes closed. Do not open them. You may hear children laughing or whispering, but whatever you do, keep your eyes closed. If you've done it correctly, you will no longer feel the heat of the flames nor the crackling and sizzling sounds of the fire. It will be as if the fire had gone out. Open your eyes. Standing where the fire will be with your imaginary friend. Your old companion will act overjoyed to see you and inquire how you have been, and what's new, the way a friend you haven't seen in a while would. Don't be fooled. They're not happy with you. In fact, they're furious at you for daring to forget about them and want nothing more than to rip you apart. Don't worry, you aren't in any danger, at least not yet. It is in your best interest to get much conversation out of them as possible to pass the time. The longer you can stall them, the least time they'll have, though admittedly, this typically will only buy you a few minutes. Eventually, your imaginary friend will suggest one of 2 games to play, tag or hide and seek. If they say you want to play tag, run. Don't take a second to delay. Just run faster than you have ever have in your life. Don't try to say anything. Just get your ass to the car. They do not care if you don't want to play their game. You are past the point of no return, and you'll play their game whether you like it or not. Once you get into your car, drive away. It doesn't matter where you drive, but it's better to avoid large cities where you're constantly having to stop at stoplights to let pedestrians cross. Your best bet is to drive in remote areas. You don't want to stop for too long. As you drive, you'll notice headlights in your rearview mirror. Best to pay them no mind, but whatever you do, do not pull over to let them pass. If you do, it'll be too late. You'll be driving all night. Try to limit your inevitable stops and make them as brief as possible. Your pursuer will only have a couple of seconds behind you. Signs they are closing in are the sounds of children laughing and sudden chills. Stay in one place too long and you'll seemingly fall asleep. Your friend has caught you. You will be on the run until 7 in the morning. If your friend opts to play hide and seek, once again, run to your car. You will have a 15-minute window to find a place to hide. If you fail to hide during that time, just give up. Nothing can save you. If you can find a hiding spot, remain there until 7 in the morning. Remain as quiet and motionless as possible. As you hide, you will hear vivid voices so realistic you swear they are just outside your hiding space. They will vary from your parents calling your name, loved ones desperate to find you, police officers demanding you to come out with claims they have warrants for your arrest, and frantic pleas for help while banging on your door on your hiding spot. Anything you can think of, your imaginary friend will try in order to draw you out. Putting earbuds in your ears to listen to music will do nothing to stop the voices. No matter what you hear, do not leave your hiding spot till 7. If you do, then you will seemingly fall asleep. Don't worry. As long as you manage to avoid your pursuer until 7 a.m., you'll be fine. The spirit will be banished, and you'll be free to continue as you see fit. You can even do the ritual again if you wanted to, but that will be pretty stupid. Don't worry, you won't be haunted or stalked by anything afterwards. You've won the game after all. But that's only if you manage to avoid the spirit. If you fail to do so, I'm afraid you will not have a good time. At first, it will be as if you had merely fallen asleep. Only upon waking do you realize how bad it is. You will awake in an open field made entirely of dirt, infinitely expanding in all directions. No sign of life whatsoever, no vegetation, nothing. Don't worry, you're not in hell or anything like that. Technically, you aren't even dead. Your soul is just trapped here for all eternity. Don't worry about your body. I'm sure your imaginary friend will take good care of it, now that it's the one that's using it. Oh yeah, I should have mentioned that earlier. That's what's on the line in this game. Your body, your life, your very existence. And if you wind up here, you've lost. Feel free to walk around your new home, although I'm afraid you'll see nothing of interest. Just a dull overcast of setting with the footprints you leave in the dirt for company. I wouldn't feel too sad about it. You have much bigger problems that demand your attention. As you stand in this field, Excuse me, Lemmy! No! Sorry about that. Lemmy's being a butt today. Okay. Are we good, Lemmy? Are you gonna make those ringing sounds again? No? Okay. I wouldn't feel too sad about it. You'll have much bigger problems that demand your attention. As you stand in this field, you will begin to see something coming towards you. These are the spirits of children who died prematurely, and they won't take kindly to your trespassing. Negotiate, bargain, run, scream, plead, fight all you like. There's no fending them off, I'm afraid. They will drag you kicking and screaming away to punish you for your insolence. Your torture will be too gruesome for words. Just use your imagination. The pain will never fade or even recede. Your torture will never cease, even for a moment. You will be unable to die despite your desire to do so at the end of the pain. You will not be shown mercy, and no god you may worship can save you now. But don't let that dissuade you from reuniting with your old friend. Certainly you would love to see them again, reminisce about simpler times. I mean, there's no way you could lose the gamble now, could you, dear reader? So shall I conclude with a question? What game do you prefer? Tag or hide and seek? That was pretty good. That's pretty good. That's pretty terrifying. That is an awful thought. That is an absolutely terrifying thought. I love it. I love everything about it. That was good. That was good. That was good. Let's see. Let's look for another one. Okay. I think we have time for like maybe 1 or 2 more. I think I read this one before. Hold on. I'm just looking to see what we have. Let's see. I think I've read this one before. Yes, that one I have read. Sorry, I was looking at one I have read before, yes. Yes, that is... I've read that one before. It was very sad. Let's see. Oh wow, Tiki-Toby, another classic. That's another classic Creepypasta one. We're definitely going to save that for the classic Creepypasta readings. Let's see. There's a lot of them here. Hold on. Oh, here's another one. Here's one. Let's see how long this one is. Oh, this one's a fairly long one, but I think we can read it. I think have we read this one before? Okay, no, we haven't. We have not. Okay. But I think we have read something from this writer before. Paige Turner. Ha. Ha. I love that. The Infinity Game by Paige Turner. Has anyone ever played the Infinity Game? The one with the mirrors? Most people don't know it's a game. They just think it's a cool visual effect. Maybe it's different for me being raised by witches. Not Halloween witches, but the ones who practice Wicca. You can Google it if you really want to learn about them, but I'm here to talk about the game. Most people don't understand what it's capable of. They have no idea that they're standing at a locked door or what's on the other side. It's almost like Wizard of Oz. If you can find your way to the Mirror Master, you will be rewarded with a wish. But getting there is no easy journey, and you want to choose your words carefully. To play, you need at least one other person, 2 standing mirrors, 5 black candles, a stick of chalk, warm clothing, and a red armband. The red armband is the most important thing to remember. It's not required to get in, but you shouldn't leave without it. While in the mirror world, you must be wary of your reflection. Its only goal is to take your place in the real world, meaning you will be trapped forever. It cannot kill you. Instead, it will attempt to trick you. Never ever speak to it. It will be dressed like you, except its armband will be on the left. Whoever you have waiting in the real world will be responsible for ensuring it doesn't get out. Choose someone you trust. Only your reflection can take your place, but everything else you will meet will try to kill you from sheer spite. If you die in there, your soul will be trapped, and the mirror through which you entered will shatter. Make sure your friend is aware a shattered mirror indicates they should immediately destroy the other one as well. Though unlikely, there are a few entities powerful enough to use the situation to their advantage. To be safe, make sure the friend isn't easily manipulated. Now that you have all the supplies, draw a pentagram on the floor with space for the mirrors in the center. Then put a lit candle on each point of the star. When everything is in place, the reflection will appear as a never-ending hallway. Stand between the mirrors and focus only on the infinite corridor. Soon you will notice a shadow far beyond your reflection. Focus on that, letting your world around you fade. Do not look away or blink. Slowly begin to inch forward, but do not be afraid of bumping into the glass. Think of it as platform 9 3/4. You must know it's going to work. When you feel a drastic temperature drop, you can look at your surroundings. You are officially inside the Mirror World's lobby, though I suppose more like a bridge. It's what connects the two places, but my family calls it a lobby. This is where you must proceed with extreme caution. The Mirror World is a backwards replica of ours. Not only does that mean left is right, but it also means beautiful, thriving cities are dead and crumbling. If you are unable to enter, do not leave the game unattended. Remove the mirrors immediately. The things that live there cannot be described as alive, but they are desperate. My mother was supposedly the only person to successfully return after seeing the Mirror Master. Growing up, I was told no one has ever met him, but when Mom, Ellen, died 2 months ago, I found her diary. My amazement grew with each passage that she described her own experience within the Infinity Game. Her first entry is from 6 months after having her firstborn, John. He was sickly, and the doctor says he wouldn't live to see his first birthday. She was unaware of the game's dangers, but she didn't care, not if she could save her son. I will copy the relevant entry here. Let it serve as a warning to anyone who wishes to play. Even the winners lose. From the diary of Ellen Pierce. I hope to never open this diary again. I purchased a new book for the start of our new lives, but instead of writing on crisp, clean pages, I continue here. The tear-stained memorial to the darkest 6 months of my life was to be buried under decades of beautiful memories, yet here I am. I won this stupid game. We should be far away from this place, beginning anew. Not here. There is only hate and pain left in my heart. Everyone told me not to go, but I didn't have a choice. Each time someone said, "You can always have more children," my heart ached with fury. I was prepared to risk my own life, but not for this. Not to feel the joy of knowing my son would survive, only to have it ripped away again. I thought I would be different, but now I write this only to warn others. I hope that vile creature never wins another soul. I entered easily, feeling the temperature drop as if exiting a heated room into an Arctic tundra. I always imagined the chill in the air, but this was cold enough to see my breath. Behind me was a mirror, and in it I saw Thomas. He appeared to be in shock, his mouth hung open as he waved. It would have been funny under different circumstances. I think the strange hallway is an in-between place. Both sides are lined with identical white doors, and I didn't know which to choose. I couldn't see the end of the hallway. It still appeared infinite. I tried the closest door, but they were locked. There were no keyholes, just solid knobs. I walked down the corridor, feeling more nervous each time I looked back to see Thomas farther away. There is no way to track the passage of time. Electronics won't work there. I don't know how long I walked before I heard the soft click of a door opening, but I no longer saw home when I turned around. Instead, I saw my reflection. She was wearing her armband on the left, just as the legend said. I know I should have been afraid, but I found it comforting. It meant the stories were true, that John had a real chance of surviving. I would have gladly traded my own life for his, but that's not how this game works. My reflection called to me. Are you lost? You need to go this way. She indicated the open door which she emerged. I knew not to respond. I remained silent as she tried again. Hello? What's wrong with you? Are you deaf or just rude? Fine. I don't care if you want to spend eternity trying to open locked doors. She shrugged and began walking in Thomas's direction. I could not follow. I had to trust my husband to tell the difference. She would return when she failed to deceive him. I couldn't go all the way she recommended, but wanted to look inside. I walked back to the open door, keeping a healthy distance. Standing in the center of the hall, I tried to peer inside, but it was too dark to see anything. I wasn't even outside yet, and I was already cracking under the pressure. Were the other doors all really locked? How long before something worse found me? It was then I realized, why do they call this a game? Game implies there's a way to move forward, clues to follow. That's when I understood how literal the stories were. If everything is backwards, shouldn't I go to the door opposite the one indicated by my reflection? I reached for the other doorknob, holding my breath as I felt it turn beneath my hand. It opened quite effortlessly, though I knew it was locked before. It opened to reveal our kitchen, where Thomas and I chose to set the mirrors. The light was dim and everything was reversed, but it was also filthy. Worse. Instead of finding my husband, I found a horrifying, twisted old man. His back was hunched, his teeth and nails were yellow, his face red and contorted with hatred. I froze. I was frozen with the fear of his icy gaze, borne to my soul. What the hell do you think you're doing here? He screamed, spit flying from his mouth. In my terror, I couldn't remember if it was against the rules to talk to anyone besides the reflection, but I didn't want to risk it. I took a few steps to my left, hoping to get to the door before he could block my exit. Don't you dare ignore me, tramp! The old man croaked in a raspy, hoarse voice. He reached under the table, retrieving a long metal cane. Thankfully, he was as slow as he looked. I ran around him, through the swinging door into the den. He was still cursing me as I continued out the front door. At the end of the driveway, I noticed my surroundings. The neighborhood was in ruin, the yards were dead, and the houses were all abandoned. It was my neighborhood, but it looked like a ghost town. None of the cars worked. Each one had busted windows, popped hoods, or slashed tires. It was midnight back home. It should have been noon here, but it looked like dusk. I understand why our reflections are so desperate to trade places. For some reason, I felt confident the old man wouldn't follow me outside. Something gave me the idea that his part of the game was to guard the kitchen door for when I needed to get home. I didn't study the test of theory, but now I'm pretty sure I was correct. I was never told where to go once I made it this far. The stories were all vague in that regard. The only thing I knew for certain was that it would get worse before it was over. That's when I realized how desperately I needed a working vehicle for speed and protection. I resigned myself to looking for a bicycle, and I remembered the mechanic who lived 3 houses down. Every weekend his garage door was open, and he could be seen working on an old car. It was hardly more than a body and wheels the last time I saw it. If everything is opposite, wouldn't that car be working condition here? Yes, it was. The damn thing made me truly believe I could do it. Hope is dangerous. If something is too good to be true, it probably is. I was so excited by the sight of the pristine red car that I forgot to be wary of danger. A strange creature I almost mistook for a dog stood between me and victory. It was similar to the size and color of a German shepherd, but its mouth opened sideways to reveal an extra row of teeth. I don't know if its eyes were located elsewhere or if it just didn't have any, but the ears looked hard, almost like rounded horns. I couldn't discern a nose either, but I'm sure it had one. I could hear it sniffing my scent. gave me a headache to look too closely, like my brain was rejecting the very sight of it. My eyes frantically searched for anything to use as a weapon, but there was nothing nearby. My heart sank as I realized it would come down to a race I had no chances of winning. Stealing a quick glance at my surroundings, I saw the only chance was to run for the door and hope it's unlocked. Otherwise, I'd be eaten by a dog monster. I tried to mentally prepare myself when a dog, with a long, high-pitched whistle, turned the creature's growls into whimper. It wasn't pleasant to my ears either, but I enjoyed seeing the effects. The noise continued until the dog thing ran out of sight. I didn't see the source of the sound at first, but I didn't have to wait long. My reflection walked into view, smiling proudly. She stopped several feet away but remained silent. I was confused until I almost asked why. My mouth opened wide, froze, then slowly closed. She hoped I would talk without thinking. Plus, if I die this quick, she can't escape. In her own way, she's more terrifying than the monsters. Uh-oh, almost had you that time. You might want to find yourself a weapon before you run into anything else. Hey, do you even know which way to go? She spoke like we were the best of friends. I was too afraid to shake my head or shrug. It seems like the kind of place that thrives on loopholes. Instead, I stared at her feet, wanting her to say a direction I could go the opposite of. You look lost. Do you need a map? I could draw one for you. Come on, just nod or something. I'm trying to help. She stomped her foot in frustration. To me, that was the confirmation about the loopholes. Or maybe she could read my mind. Either way, I wasn't trying it. Be that way. I don't care if you want to live or not. But it's a shame the kid has to die because you won't ask for help. She shrugged and began walking away. Those words hit me like a freight train at the time. But now the words carried the added weight of truth. I feel as if they were crushing me. Controlling my temper as she left was one of the most difficult parts of the nightmare. So many times I wondered if punching her counted as communication, but John's life was not worth the risk. That is when I vowed to break every mirror I saw for the rest of my life, a vow I have thus far made good on. When she was well out of sight, I discovered my next obstacle would be to find keys. The car was locked, but the house was not. Knowing something would be inside, I took a large crowbar from the garage. I crept in the back door, staying low. I was in an empty kitchen, hoping for a nice key hook by the door, but I couldn't be so fortunate. The room smelled of rotting food on every counter, and flies were swarming something that looked like raw meat. I choked on the vomit, threatening to erupt, and focused on John. This experience was nothing compared to the idea of losing him. I made my way to the den with a broken TV and rough-looking leather furniture. From where I stood, a recliner was directly in front of me with a couch on either side, all angled towards the television in the center. Small, dirty tables sat on each end of the couches, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw car keys atop one by the recliner. Forgetting my fear, I reached down quickly, only to scream myself hoarse when a cold, skeletal hand shot out from the chair, grasping my wrist. It had a grip of steel. For a moment I thought it would break my arm. I lashed out desperately with a crowbar, making contact with whatever was on the side of the recliner. The instant its grip released, my hand closed around the keys, and I ran for the car. It was pure luck the dog monster hadn't returned, because I didn't stop to check before flying outside. As soon as the car's door closed, I hit the lock button 3 times and performed a thorough inspection of the back seat, satisfied there were no unsuspected passengers. I was ready to go. There was a horrific amount of fear the car still wouldn't start as I inserted the key, but it roared to life like it was a brand new. Hell, it probably was. It was really just like a king's quest. Find a clue, find an item, solve a puzzle, escape danger, advance, repeat to the boss fight. Careful, Elle. Your nerd is showing. Look at me. I made a joke. Never thought that would happen again. I went to the end of the driveway and hit the brakes, realizing I didn't know which way to go. In a game where there's multiple parts, they usually all come out the same place, or one is a deadly trap with no escape. Of course, you usually know your destination. That's when it hit me. So I'm playing a game where the goal is to cure a sick boy. Where would the boss fight take place? A hospital. You'd want the best doctor to win the best equipment. With the best equipment. I turned left towards the best hospital in the state where John was born. We moved 3 hours away from our hometown to be near it. 15 minutes away was the closest resident we could find, and it seemed good at the time, but if now it felt like hours. I didn't know what the roads would be like, but I knew it wouldn't be good. I could have never imagined the level of destruction I saw that day. Our normally smooth paved streets were filled with large potholes, some big enough to get stuck in if I wasn't careful. The buildings were in various stages of demolition. None looked to be inhabited, but I'm sure they were. The beautiful plants and trees that once lined the medians were brown and dead. I carefully watched all my surroundings, worried something would come charging from a dark alley as I slowly steered around potholes. Luckily, it only happened to be once, close to the halfway point. I was preparing for another tight squeeze when I heard a scraping sound from behind. In the rearview mirror, I saw another deformed-looking man. This one was younger with long, greasy hair and burnt skin. The sound was from the steel bat he was dragging, and one of those weird dog monsters tagged along like his pet. If the roads were decent, I could outrun them easily, but I knew they would catch me if I drove in the middle of that bad patch. I slowed down even more, letting them get closer to a decent section of the road. And I don't think they are capable of intelligent thought. They did not hesitate when I began reversing, nor did they make any attempt to move when I ran them down. I aimed for the man, considering him the main threat, but the beast was only stunned. There was a moment I thought it was over when the car stalled on top of the corpse, but the wheels found traction when the beast collided with the rear end. I'm not sure how he avoided going under the wheels as I flew backwards, but it wasn't touched. I shifted and drive and punched the gas, trying once more for the dog monster, but still missing. Going as fast as I dared, I ran the man over once more, just to be sure, before coming to a cautious stop. I hated not knowing what that dog thing was doing, but I felt fairly certain and ran away to lick its wounded pride. I didn't doubt I would see it again, but that was a problem for later. I made it to the hospital without further attack, parking in the front of the main entrance. The sight of it did not inspire confidence. It was in worse condition than anything I had seen yet. That's when I realized I made a terrible mistake. Everything is opposite. The best hospital will be the worst. I need our world's worst hospital. I jumped back into the car, making my way to the free clinic on 3rd. If my theory was right, it would probably hold the cure for cancer. A flock of zombie birds attacked the car at one point, but they didn't cause much damage. I knew I made the right decision the moment I entered the bad side of town. Well, our world's bad side. In this world, it was full of lavish mansions. The clinic was immaculate and doubled its normal size. I parked on the curb and ran for the entrance. It was starting to get darker, but I didn't understand how. There should have been hours of daylight left. Then, once again, as if reading my mind, the bitch was back. Gosh, are you now just getting here? You better hurry. Time is running out fast, she teased. I never heard of a time limit. I ached to taunt her with the obvious failure to deceive Thomas. If she was still there, it meant she couldn't fool him. The thought filled me with strength. I turned my back onto her and walked inside, but she followed. You know that, right? That when it gets dark, the hourglass stands empty? Well, not literally, but I like this expression. Anyway, I just wanted to check because it seems like most people from your world are ignorant to that detail, she said nonchalantly. The more I considered it, the more it made sense. Most games do have time limits, and being in this place after dark does have a sort of game over vibe. Unfortunately, I couldn't ask questions and I had to keep moving. I thought she would leave again, but she continued to follow at a careful distance. Don't mind me, I just want to see the big climax. Your sweetie was too smart. There's no point in chatting with him anymore. I didn't give her the satisfaction of looking back. Seeing a map of the hospital, I stopped to study the layout. Of course, I needed to get to the top floor. It couldn't have been right here on the ground floor. No, heaven forbid. I walked to the elevator but noticed my reflection was gone. The doors chimed and slid open. I put one foot inside but pulled it out quickly. Did I really want to walk into a middle box in a bizarro world where no one could help me if I get trapped inside? I looked around and saw a nice open stairway. The empty elevator closed behind me as I made my way up the stairs. I held onto the rail all the way up. Losing because of a fall so late in the game would be too insulting to live with. I'm glad I did too, because my reflection jumped out screaming, "Boo!" at the moment I reached the top. I wondered if anyone had tried to murder their reflection. I'll have to look into that one day. I held my crowbar at the ready as I passed her. It felt glued to my hand after so much time. My reflection was tailing me a little closer, getting desperate. I'm sure. When I reached the reception desk to ask for the children's ward, she took a seat in the waiting area. She grinned when she saw me watching, giving me 2 thumbs up and a wink. You go, girl. I'm rooting for you. More confused than ever, I went through the double doors in search of a doctor, or mirror master, I guess. Terrible name. They had no imagination back in the day. I would have named him the Greedy Gremlin. Okay, maybe that's not much better, but it is better. He wasn't hard to find. I stood in a dark hallway and bright light shone underneath the swinging doors ahead. I'd come too far to stop then, when I could feel my heart thumping in my ears with every step. When I walked to the right, it was so bright I had to shield my eyes. Then with a snap of someone's fingers, they faded into normal indoor lighting. The only person in the room was the doctor I see on TV. The one with the ridiculous commercial with that annoyingly catchy tune. I can't remember his name. You know, the really fat, bald guy with glasses. It's not important. It wasn't how she looked anyway. It threw me off. It threw me off, though, and the surprise must have shown on my face. Ah, not what you were expecting. Me either. Who is this, anyway? The doctor asked, examining his own appearance. You don't know who you are? I stammered. Ugh, of course I know who I am, girl. I appear however one's mind is comfortable seeing me, but usually not this, he cringed. Wait, what? How could... I tried to ask. No, you aren't here for a magic lesson, and I don't give them anyway. You came here because you want something desperately enough to risk your life for it. I find that utterly delicious. So tell me, what do you want? You mean, I just tell you and you do it? I don't have to, I don't know, solve a riddle or kill a monster? I couldn't believe it was so simple. Oh, I'm sorry. Was finding me too easy for you? Were my pets not vicious enough, dear? Well, worry not, for next is the best part yet. The longer you're here, the darker it gets. The darker it becomes, the more of my pets you're likely to see. Most of them are nocturnal, but they'll be awake and ready for breakfast any moment now. He was a lively talker. His voice was booming with pride and his hands gestures were all over the place. I could only stand there, horrified and speechless. Come now, what is your wish? Weren't you listening? You should probably pick up the pace. He grinned, and his teeth were no longer normal teeth of the TV doctor, but sharp, brown fangs. My son is dying. I want you to cure him. I try to keep my voice steady. My, that's a tricky one. Money, love, fame. Those things are easy. Murder is the easiest, but life? That's very tricky indeed. It disrupts the natural order. He was enjoying himself. Please, I'll do anything, I begged. Well, this is one way it could work. If you're sure. There is no turning back. He paused, stretching the suspense until I vigorously shook my head in agreement. Very good, then. With a snap of his fingers, a scroll appeared in one hand and a pen in the other. It was the kind of pen you dip into ink, but I never saw one before that moment. Sign here, please. One flick of the wrist and a long scroll opened, falling to the floor between us. I picked up the bottom end, my eyes scrolling over the millions of tiny printed words jammed together on paper. At the very end, it was a sign here line. If I sign this, it'll cure my baby? He will be and stay in perfect health? I would not see my son cured of one sickness only to fall ill the following week. Absolutely. In fact, with this contract, your boy will be immune to all diseases, he assured. My heart sang at the words, and if the cost of saving John happened to be my own life, as I suspected, it was a price I'd happily pay. I reached for the pen, and with a stab too fast for my eyes to see, the doctor pricked my finger. A large drop of blood fell on the paper, and with another snap, the contract vanished. It's been a pleasure doing business. By the way, to cure your son, I have to borrow half his father's remaining lifespan. Toodles! The doctor disappeared with a final wink. I hoped to never see his wretched face again. His words made my blood run cold, but I couldn't stop to do the math right there. Terrified of what would be chasing me, I ran back into the waiting room area. My reflection was waiting for me at the doors to the waiting room, smiling. I shoved on the doors with all my strength, but she had me locked in. I used my adrenaline to smash the glass door into the reception counter with my crowbar. My arms and legs were cut getting through, but I didn't have time to worry about blood loss. I flew over the counter, ignoring the shocked look of my reflection. As I made my way down the stairs, I saw several more zombie-looking people coming out of various rooms. I almost didn't make it back to the ground floor when a kid with no legs managed to grab my ankle. The only thing that saved me was a crowbar catching the rail, I tumbled. When I finally made it to the entrance, I saw the car was turning onto its side and several more zombie and dog things were waiting close by. Remembering the hospital mat, I decided to take a chance on the ambulance bay. I was betting they would have owned at least one junked-out ambulance that would run on this world. If they didn't, I would have likely died there. Not even someone with a machine gun could survive on the streets now. I cried when I saw it. There was one ambulance that appeared to be in working condition, and I was lucky enough for the keys to be inside still. I still checked the back to make sure it was empty, but that almost got me killed too. I slammed the back doors just in time to avoid one of the dogs jumping in. The ambulance rocked to side from the things trying to get in, and I strapped myself into the driver's seat. It was my first time driving anything bigger than a car. I think it would have been a bumpy ride under normal conditions. There were several times I thought the ambulance would tip over. The worst was close to the end. I was almost back in my neighborhood when I heard the roar of another engine right before it crashed into my bumper. I went off-road, missing a huge crater by inches before regaining control. The truck driver was, by my reflection, reversed to follow. It did something desperate. I waited for her to get right behind me, almost touching, and accelerated. As I hoped, she too sped up, trying to position herself to force me into a fishtail. At last possible second, I closed my eyes and swerved away, once again becoming dangerously close to flipping over me. Beside me, the bitch couldn't react in time. The truck she found was pointed nose down into a deep crater, its back end hanging out of a steep angle. My house was surrounded by hideous creatures. Most didn't appear human or animal. I couldn't tell what warped things were supposed to be. Some of them had several limbs or appendages. Some had none. One looked like a huge floating eyeball, and another looked like a snake with 2 heads. I didn't see a way inside. I couldn't believe I came all this way just to lose here. At the very least, I wanted to kill as many as possible before I died. That's when a plan occurred to me. I reversed to position myself for a straight shot through our den. The house was now termite infested anyway. Even if it didn't have huge windows, I'm sure the walls would have been weak enough to drive through. I felt like I was operating a tank as 2 of the creatures fell beneath the wheels. It was a strange sight as the walls crumbled around me and the sounds was terrible, but I didn't stop to enjoy the view. When the ambulance couldn't go any further, I climbed out of the passenger window and dove through the kitchen door without looking to see what followed. The moment I saw the kitchen, my eyes searched for the old man, but he saw me first. Pain blossomed in my eyes as something struck me over the head. I fell to the ground dazed, but managed to keep a grip on my crowbar. I feigned unconsciousness until the old man grabbed one of my ankles. I sat up, swinging wildly, enjoying the wet smack of contact. His black blood sprayed, and I wasted no time getting to my feet. As I made it to the exit, more creatures burst into the room. I rushed through the door, hoping it locked behind me. I held my breath as the door shook furiously, but nothing was able to follow. I breathed a sigh of relief and began feeling my injuries in earnest. I had several deep gashes on my arms and legs. My head was bleeding badly, and my wrist was swelling. Grateful to still have the armband, I began to make my way to the mirror entrance. I only made it a few steps when I heard a soft click of another door behind me. I hope you didn't expect to be rid of me that easily. Her voice no longer sounded like mine. It was deeper, distorted. I turned to see she now had the same ghoulish zombie appearance as those other things. Did she always look like that way? Did I only see me because that's what I expected? Like the doctor? I hope someone solves the mystery of that place one day. There are still so many unanswered questions. I ran for my life, focused on Thomas and John. I heard her footsteps gaining as she screamed at me. Have you figured it out yet? Wait up, I'll explain it to you. If you divide the lifespan in half, it means that they have the same amount of time to live. Don't you get it? Wait up! But she cackled an evil, dark laugh. She sounded unnatural in her garbled voice. Humans should not be able to make sounds like her laughter made. I was so focused on the light at the end of the corridor, I didn't understand what she was telling me. I heard her footsteps closer with every step, but couldn't look back. Her howling laughter followed me all the way to home. When Thomas saw me, his eyes lit up with relief, then fear and anger as he saw my appearance and that of the thing chasing me. I saw him step away from the mirror, allowing me to exit. I went through the mirror like an Olympic diver. The second I was out, I turned to see the monster me collide with the glass, bouncing off like rubber. Now that I was back, the door was closed for her. Before she could rise, Thomas shattered the glass. He shattered the second one just to be safe. Before the record, he could have simply blown out the candle and erased the pentagram. It wasn't until several hours later, after I explained everything to my husband, that we understood what she was trying to tell us. If they had the same amount of time to live, they would die at the same time. I was devastated. I knew I wouldn't be able to handle losing you both at once. We were so young. I thought we would still have many years. I never dreamed. I couldn't believe. Thomas and John passed away 2 weeks later. John was crying in the night. Thomas felt badly for my lack of sleep, so he took the baby for a drive. It calmed John down, and it was only a few times around the block, but this time a drunk driver had ran a stop sign. See, it was all for nothing. My mother met my father 4 years later. It took a while for her to have a normal life again, but I always felt like we were a happy family. She was a terrific mom. I had no idea such terrible things were in her past. Dad didn't know the full story either, only that she had a husband and a baby killed in a wreck before he met her. I can't blame her for not wanting to tell me. She knows how much I love a challenge. Well, no, I don't think I'll visit the mirror world anytime soon. It would be nice to learn more about it. Like she says, there's still so much we don't know, and personally, I have a long list of questions. Besides, it sounds fine if you don't make a wish, right? I'll just leave this here for now in case anyone else wants to know anything. Woof! That was a good one! Oh my gosh. Wow, that was intense. That was intense, and that was so messed up. I loved that so very much. Oof, that was good. That was good! That was good. Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow, we already made it to the 2-hour mark. You guys, we made it to the 2-hour mark already. You know what that means? It's time to finish up. But tomorrow we will be starting, hopefully everything works. I play tested it and it seemed to be working fine. But we'll be starting a new game tomorrow. We will be playing The Crooked Man. It is an RPG horror game. It's been out for quite a while, but I've wanted to play it on stream. It's a part of a whole series called the Strange Men series. So which I will be playing on stream in the future. So we will be starting with The Crooked Man. And I'm excited to try. I'm excited. I'm so excited to play it. I'm so excited to play it and share it with you guys. But you guys, this was so much fun. This is so much fun. I always enjoy our creepypasta readings. I always enjoy reading these spoopy, scary stories for you guys. This time around, it wasn't super spoopy scary, but it was still really, really fun. And I think next time I do this, I'm definitely going to try to read the classics. I'll spend a nice dedicated long stream to read the classics creepypastas, the spooky spaghettis. So yes, I'm so glad. I hope you guys had a lot of fun listening to my stories. I enjoy reading these. I always enjoy reading these. And last one was by Paige Turner. That was such a good story. Again, never ceases to amaze me how talented all these creepypasta writers are. They're amazingly talented, and I'm super impressed by them. Every time! But yes, tomorrow we will be playing The Crooked Man. I am so excited to be able to play that with you guys, and I am so excited to just be able to wrap up the week. I know this week's scheduling has been a little bit weird because of, personal circumstances that I can't control. But you know what? Next week we will be getting back to normal, going back to our Monday morning chats and everything like that. But, yes, until next time, remember, hug your friends, tell someone you love them, and be a force for good in the world, because goodness knows the world needs it. I love you guys so very, very much, and thank you for spending some time with me. I will be seeing you guys tomorrow for a new game. I love you guys all very much, and I will see you guys tomorrow. You guys take care and enjoy the rest of your wonderful, beautiful days. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.